So I want to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back here, because I just got done rewatching this video from April 2018 that I made in my senior year of high school, in what I generally refer to as the first year where I was full-time making YouTube videos as a hobby. I say full-time hobby, doesn't really make sense, right? But I was doing daily commentaries and we were having a good time. That was almost a decade ago. 7 years is a long time, folks. But back in this time frame, we made a Why I Want video on Joe Veleno. And it's interesting because if you review a lot of the sentiment about this player back from 2018's NHL Draft season, I think the Why I Want video that we made was actually pretty good. It's just a lot of the information that we had discussed and a lot of the projections didn't really come to fruition. Now, I'll save you the details because I did rewatch my own video at 2 times the speed. Yeah, I understand that these commentaries, there's a little bit of cadence issues in response to the pacing of things, but still, essentially what we had talked about back in 2018 was how Joe Veleno, an exceptional status player, whose overall reputation as a prospect got tainted by the fact that he was an exceptional status player, was supposed to be a safe pick in the 2018 draft. We said that because this guy was granted exceptional status in the QMJHL, he was the very first exceptional status player. Because of that, there was automatically this label that said that Joe Veleno was in the same conversation as Aaron Ekblad, an inevitable first overall pick, as John Tavares, an inevitable first overall pick, as Connor McDavid, an inevitable first overall pick. But of course, Joe Veleno was not a first overall guy. And we did make the point back in the Why I Want video, highlighting how Joe Veleno wasn't given exceptional status because you should see this guy as the next McDavid. But he was given exceptional status because he was just ready for the QMJHL earlier than most folks would normally be. And it's why, in his first QMJHL season, after being a first overall exceptional status player, he was playing mostly in a bottom 6 role. He only had 43 points in 62 games played. The years after, we saw Joe Veleno inevitably become a top prospect at the NHL Draft. There were folks ranking him as highly as 4th overall. There were other folks ranking him as low as 20-something overall. Not all the scouting reports are still available on Elite Prospects 7 years after the fact, but the ones that they do have listed had Veleno at the 14th, 10th, and 14th overall spots, with NHL Central Scouting ranking Veleno as the 8th overall North American guy. Then he went 30th, which was a lot lower than everybody was expecting, to the Detroit Red Wings. Now, I've dragged this intro on long enough, but I do think that the context surrounding my opinions on Joe Veleno does matter in this respect. Because I obviously am very biased towards guys drafted in 2018. It was my senior year of high school. It was my own draft season. I, of course, was not drafted, but still, Joe Veleno was. And he did have himself a pretty rough 2024-2025 with the Detroit Red Wings. 10 points in 56 games played. He got traded to Chicago, had 7 points in 18 games over there, before the Chicago Blackhawks decided to trade him over to the Seattle Kraken. After which, Veleno got bought out by Seattle and then signed to the Montreal Canadiens earlier last week. He is on a 1-year deal worth $900,000. Now, here's the thing about Veleno. If you check out what happened with him in his 24-25 campaign, you'll see that he played the majority of the season with guys like Christian Fischer and Rasmussen. He was on a line with Berggren for a little bit, Andrew Kopp as well. There was the odd game or two where Veleno was placed in between Larkin and Raymond, but that didn't really last all too long. You can see here that towards the 3rd and 4th quarters of the season, you started seeing Veleno going with guys like Comfer and Berggren and Soderblom, Tarasenko. Inevitably, he ended off the season with Tyler Bertuzzi, Lucas Reichel, and Patty Maroon. So Joe Veleno was all over the place, didn't really have much consistency with whom it was he was playing with, nor in his overall production level. Which is why, when we go over to this article published on RedWingsInsider.com by Julian Trecker yesterday, it goes over some comments made by Joe Veleno in regards to why the Red Wings traded him away. Joe Veleno went out there and laid it out there on the line. So this article will be linked in the description. It's Veleno's commentary after he ended up signing with the Montreal Canadiens. In an interview, he opened up about what went wrong with Detroit and the Red Wings, and why he believes the Red Wings moved on from him and his services. I won't lie. The confidence wasn't there. I didn't have a good start to the season. I don't know why. And it impacted my confidence. Consistency was also a big issue. I need to find a way to improve that. Veleno stated that being scratched, traded, and inevitably bought out by the Kraken after the last season was difficult, but it also served as a wake-up call. Now, after signing a one-year $900K contract with the Canadiens, the Quebecer is ready to bounce back in front of his friends and family. As soon as I heard Montreal was interested, I was really happy. It's really the place I wanted to play. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that Joe Veleno, a Montreal Quebecer, is interested and grateful that the Canadiens gave him that opportunity. Let's move on now, shall we? Canadiens GM Kent Hughes even texted Veleno ahead of training camp to tell him to bring his work boots, but Veleno says he is up for the challenge and ready to put last year behind him. I want to keep progressing. I'm not happy with my season last year. I want to rebuild my game and make a name for myself here. I'm going to put my body on the line every night. Asked about the Canadiens' strategy of picking up players with high ceilings who have lost momentum with other teams, Veleno didn't shy away from that comparison. Yeah, that's exactly what they seem to be doing, man. Every single year, like Doc, Newhook, now it's Veleno, Line A last year too. Lots of momentum with guys that are, let's just say, on the wrong side of a bad season. I hope that's what they're doing, Veleno said. That's why I wanted to come here. I know how they work. You hear good things about Marty St. Louis and his staff, about Kent Hughes and his management. This opportunity couldn't be better. I want to bounce back and take my game up a notch. I want to show my best qualities every night. I want to play with character, energy, and passion. Now, if Joe Veleno does exhibit the top-tier ceiling like we believed he had back in 2018, then that would be absolutely perfect. I don't think it's likely. I think maybe there's a 0.5% chance that happens. But might I remind you, back in the 2018 draft season, the folks that said Joe Veleno was a top 5 prospect in that draft class were comparing him to Jonathan Toews. This guy was a two-way center who was seen by most, myself included, I even said it in the video, he was seen by folks as the most guaranteed NHL player out of the first round. And that's a tall kind of label to toss out onto somebody in a draft class that included Andrei Svechnikov and Quinn Hughes. Now, obviously, you would not say that Joe Veleno was more projectable at NHL caliber than Rasmus Dahlin was. We even said that in the video too. Dahlin was by far the number 1 prospect. But when it came to guys that you could project to be NHL players, Veleno was right behind. And that spoke volumes to the work ethic, to the consistency and the skill that he had as a two-way center with playmaking and defensive acumen in the queue. He just never really was able to fully take that into the next step like we said he was going to. So this is one of the many times where I, in particular, was wrong about my assessment of a player, but the fact that he is still 25 years old and he is coming over to a brand new team after getting rejected essentially by 3 teams in the same year. Detroit traded him away, so did Chicago, and then Seattle bought him out, all within the span of a few months. That should be the ultimate wake-up call. And so for Joe Veleno to get really honest about it and talk about how things broke down in Detroit, I think it's pretty mature. And I think Habs fans have a lot that they can be excited for out of this player, assuming he goes out there and overtakes a Kapanen or somebody else to actually get a spot on this forward core. That is a conversation for another day, though. But for now, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Joe Veleno expressing his regret in Detroit? And how do you think he's going to bounce back in Montreal, if at all? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.